car crashes, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis, Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts with the attorneys of Hollis, Wright.
Good evening and welcome into another edition of The Attorneys. We are so glad to have you along with us. Of course, we've got another great show lined up for you. We're going to be talking about car accidents. Now what? We're going to answer so many questions that you may have, and go ahead, get in contact with one of the attorneys from Hollis Wright right now. All you have to do, it's simple, call 1-844-LAW-TALK, and you can talk to someone confidentially. It's free, and you will talk to them live right now. And we've got a great guest lined up for you because we've got a lot to unpack. When you think about the fact that there is a car accident every 3 minutes and 55 seconds, guys, Josh, yeah, that's a lot of car accidents.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, it's why there are a lot of lawyers that handle these types of accidents. When you look at that statistic, it's almost staggering to recognize how often that happened. Not every car accident, Art, is significant with permanent injuries. Some can be managed quickly, and others take a little more legal work involved. But, you know, when we talk about these types of cases, we've got a lot of people at our firm that do this type of work. Craig Shirley with our law firm, one of our lawyers, does a great job, and he's been with us for years, and he handles these cases. So I know you're going to be our expert today to be able to answer these questions. Glad to have you on. Glad to have you on. Glad to see you again right here on the show. You look good. You look good on TV.
I appreciate it.
All right. Hey, so let's just kind of jump off from the 10,000-foot view a little bit. How do you advise people, because I see you even in our conference room sometimes with new clients, how do you advise those clients when they come in for the very first time, they just had an accident, maybe never been through this before, how do you kind of get started with them?
So the way, when we see them, it's obviously after they've been involved in a collision, they've done the few steps that they do, but I like to talk to them first about, you know, let's talk about what you should do immediately after the collision there at the accident scene, because, you know, you can't have too much evidence, you can't have too much documentation. So a lot of clients think, you know, when the police get there, should I tell them if it's my fault, if I think it is? And the answer that I always give is no. And it's not that we're trying to hide anything or trying to pull one over on anybody, but the investigating officer's responsibility is to assign fault there at the collision after they do their investigation, because the truth is that if you've been involved in a collision, you may be dazed, confused, just in a state of disarray sort of thing. You don't know what exactly went on. There may be a witness that saw everything that has talked to the officers. So that's one of the first steps you can do, is just get in touch with the police and tell them, hey, I was involved in a collision, here's what I know happened. Another big thing to do is take pictures. When you're in that collision, document the scene, take pictures of the vehicle, the property damage, where the vehicles ended up. Because again, you just can't have too much proof, too much evidence, or too much documentation about what possibly happened, where the impact was, where the collisions ended up. So all the information that you can gather, you want witnesses' names, you want other drivers' information, the make, model, and trim color of the vehicle. All of that's very, very important information to have. You just can't have too much.
And one of the things, Art, that I have found that is helpful is lawyers have access almost instantaneously to the accident reports, the traffic reports that are created by the officers. And that lays a lot of things out. And Craig makes a really good point, which is, you know, hey, look, if you think you were at fault, it's not really your responsibility to identify that. And here's why. A lot of people don't recognize what the rules of the road are, who has the right of way in certain circumstances, and may not have recognized exactly how the accident happened. The officer is going to unpack that and unravel that for everyone, take statements, gather information, and make a judgment call from his perspective. And then, you know, you've got a more objective view of what happened in the accident. And then as lawyers get involved, they can work with the officer to kind of really understand it in context.
And along those lines, you're not the only person involved. There's another vehicle or maybe multiple vehicles involved. How much interaction should you have with those others involved in that accident?
Well, the big thing, I think, first and foremost, too, is make sure that you and your passengers are okay. Assess yourself, then assess the other drivers and other folks involved in the collision. But like I said, starting there and getting that evidence and documentation, talk to them, get their name, their information. For sure, you're going to want their insurance carrier's name and policy number. You're going to want their contact information, their address, witness's address. So anybody that's around there on the scene, it's good to talk to them about, hey, what did you see? What's your name? Can I have your name and information? Just may need to get in contact with you at a later date. See, you never know what's going to pan out weeks and days and months down the road.
Craig, talk just a little bit about, let's assume someone had an accident, they had to go to the hospital, they have injuries, whether it was started with MRIs and x-rays and it turned into maybe the need for a surgical procedure, whatever, or maybe they're just banged up. How does a lawyer assist the client in those circumstances to be able to gather the information from the medical facilities?
Yeah, so, and Josh, it's a great point too, that to back up just a little bit, I've had a lot of clients come in and call me and say, look, I wasn't in pain right after the accident, but now I'm in some serious pain. My neck and back have not stopped hurting, or my knee is still swollen a week after. What do I need to do? And they go and get those MRIs and they get those surgical evaluations. And what the attorneys can do is get those records and bills for them. And that's what I tell all my clients is, your job is to get healthy and get your treatment. We'll handle the rest. We'll get those records and bills for you. We'll get those in. We'll get them summarized and looked at and decide, what the hospital is saying, what the physicians are saying, what the actual diagnoses are, and what that treatment schedule is going to be in the future. So it helps kind of facilitate all of that.
One of the things I think that's important too to recognize is that, lawyers on our side of the bar handle these on contingency fees, right? So we do not charge for any of the investigation. If there's an expert that's necessary, if medical records are required to be ordered. And there are times when we've done a full and complete evaluation with a contingency fee arrangement, and then you have to go back to the client and say, hey, look, unfortunately, this is not a claim. You're at fault, and we cannot prove your claim. That does happen. And so the reality is you want a law firm that will look at this and give you the same quality of legal services as what is happening on the insurance side, where you don't have to pay out of pocket unless you recover. You want someone immediately to be able to investigate it for you and really reach an objective decision of, do you have a claim or do you not?
And that's good information, because all of you at home watching, this probably applies to just about everyone watching tonight. They've been in a car accident, know people who've been in a car accident, and you talk about, fault. What if I'm not wearing my seatbelt? How much of that information do I share during this very critical time after an accident has happened?
And that's a very popular question that we get. I wasn't wearing my seatbelt. Does that mean that I don't have a case? And the answer is no. Because in Alabama, the fact that you're not wearing your seatbelt can't be used against you to negate or lessen the value of the compensation of your damage that you received. So it's always important, it's a common theme that you'll hear us talk about, is get in touch with an attorney so they can talk to you about your rights and obligations and what can and can't be used against you.
One of the things too that I know we see a lot is immediately after an accident, before lawyers get involved, insurance companies, whether it's for the at-fault carrier or even your own carrier, want to take statements of the individuals involved in the accidents, which, if it's your own carrier, is probably not as significant, but if it's the at-fault carrier wanting a statement instantaneously before a lawyer gets involved, that's dangerous, isn't it?
It's very dangerous, because if it's the at-fault carrier, their only objective is to get something they can use against you, and that's just the truth of the matter. And you have an obligation to talk with your own insurance carrier under certain circumstances, but it can be very dangerous to talk to the at-fault carrier for a number of reasons.
Another reason why you want to get a law firm involved on a contingency fee that is not going to charge you to be able to manage all this stuff. And Art, I talk a lot about to our clients, hey, look, you manage the stress of what you're going through on the medical side. I will manage the entire business side of this. You do not need to worry, concern yourself with this. I got this, and this is what I do for a living, and I'm going to protect you, and I'm going to lead, guide, and direct you through the process. And when I need assistance from you, I'm coming to you. You can always come to me if you got questions, but I'm here to be able to do that. So, I think it's important to have someone manage the business side of it for you.
And I'm sure everyone at home is glad to hear that type of information. We're going to stop right there because we want to pick that back up. We've got a lot to get through when you start talking about car accidents. We also have attorneys standing by right now who will take your call. And they'll take that call. It's free, it's confidential, and it's live. So you can reach someone right now by calling 1-844-LAW-TALK or 324-3600, and that's 205 is the area code there. Something else that's important, please go ahead and follow us on all the social media channels, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. You'll find Hollis Wright right there. Good information throughout the week. But of course, we're glad that you're joining us here on Sunday night. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back with the attorneys in just a bit.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis, Wright, a personal injury law firm, and thank you for watching The Attorneys. We hope you, a friend, or a loved one never needs legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of the show is simple: to provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free and off air. So if you have questions specific to the show or related to other accident or injury topics, call, email, or text us. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, or go to hollis-wright.com and click on the Contact Us button. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us and watching The Attorneys.
The Attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you.
When we started the show 8 years ago, my hope was we would be able to do what we do best, which is to help people answer real-world legal-related issues they have in their life.
People oftentimes are confronting various legal issues and problems in their lives that range across the gamut of legal practice areas: bankruptcy, criminal law, family law, just to name a few. And to be able to have a 30-minute platform or format to where we can just cover various legal topics once a week, that's obviously the primary focus of the show.
That we would be able to use the resources of the many lawyers we have at this law firm to create a plan that had a lasting impact that also gave back to the community at the same time. And I think we've done just that with The Attorneys.
Glad to have you with us. We're having a great discussion on car accidents, what happens after an accident, and we are going to get right back into that discussion because we've got so much to unpack here. And guys, you really got to start it. And Josh, you mentioned about this before the break. Texting, distracted driving, all of those things, and how that play into the importance of it.
It's changed the way that we investigate claims because it's become so prevalent, kind of distracted driving. It also opens up potential other damages that one can claim. What have you seen generally at the firm in your cases? Distracted driving has become significant.
It's become very significant. And, I like to use the term distracted driving because it's, normally you'll hear texting and driving, but it can be a whole heap of other issues other than just texting and driving. Sure, you got text messages that you're sending, but gosh, all the social media accounts that you have. You could be on Snapchat, you could be scrolling through Instagram or Facebook, and all that is distracted driving. And, unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of it, and a lot more of it, and a lot more frequently, where folks are just, using their phone. They're just not paying attention. They're driving like they normally would, but instead now they have their phone in their hand and they're looking down, looking up, looking down, and looking up, and they're causing these collisions. And most of the time, when you got this distracted driving, you get people blowing through red lights and stop signs, and that's where stuff starts getting really, really dangerous. So it's bad.
One of the interesting things is I get this question a lot. Well, how are we ever going to prove the person's never going to admit that they were on social media or they were watching a YouTube video or they were texting while they were driving? You don't necessarily have to do that. As technology has gotten better in vehicles and in commercial vehicles, there are now, if you will, black boxes in vehicles that identify things like steering input, accelerator percentage, braking percentage. And what happens is when you have an accident with these black boxes, it generally, most manufacturers will back up 3 to 5 seconds prior to the accident and will identify what was the person doing at that time? There are ways to prove someone was distracted on a phone without actually having to prove through them that they were actually on their telephone. Part of it may be using the black box to show, for example, they never pumped their brakes and were going 55 miles an hour, and maybe they hit their brakes in the last quarter second before the accident. That's a good example of being distracted with something if you're not paying attention ahead of you. So there are creative ways. It's another reason why you want to get a lawyer involved. There are creative ways in order to be able to establish someone was distracted and to rule out whether they were distracted using technology that's out there right now.
So Josh, when you bring that up, and I'm sure everyone at home is thinking the same thing, it raises a point about what is actually legally available to all the parties involved. Do they have rights to get my records, my phone records? Yeah. Can they get the black box information? Is that legally theirs, or do they have to subpoena that? How does that process work?
Yeah, it's a good call. I'll let you answer it.
There's a number of ways to do it. You do have subpoena power after you file a lawsuit to go in and get that information. And Josh mentioned, you have the black box on the vehicle. I like to say that the cell phones have their black boxes as well. Mm-hmm. And so, like Josh said, it's very important to contact an attorney because we have those resources to use experts to not only download the black box on the vehicle, but download the information from the cell phone and get that cell phone from the other party and go through and download all the data and look at it and say, well, were they texting? Were they on this Instagram while the accident occurred? Were they on Snapchat? Were they on Twitter? What were they doing on their phone? So there's a whole heap of ways to do it. It's very important to contact an attorney.
And a lot of it is establishing habit. If someone says, I wasn't texting and driving, but we know the black box data or the bizarre circumstances of the accident support someone was distracted because an accident should not happen like this, a lot of times it is that they don't recognize that their habit will matter. And a habit is as simple as they drive to work from 8:30 a.m. to 9 every morning, yet their cell phone records show that they send 6 text messages Monday through Friday during that time frame. That's a habit someone has of driving and being distracted. They may not have, and by the way, there's a statistic on this, that someone may text 1,000 times before an accident actually happens on the road, okay? So habit sometimes can be used too, and it's another reason why you want to get a law firm involved to be able to lead, guide, and direct you through the process.
Habits, and also we touched on this at the very beginning when we first opened the show. We talked about multiple vehicles involved. How critical is that, and how does that play into the accident?
Well, it plays into it because that's the more vehicles that are involved, the more statements you're going to have about what happened, the more information you're going to be able to gather, and then ultimately, if you're not at fault for anything, and you have 2 or 3 vehicles that created this chain reaction that caused your damages, that's more insurance coverage and more insurance policies that are going to be in effect. So you're going to have different carriers, different adjusters that are involved. It's a lot of different angles that can be had when you're dealing with these vehicles, and you may have one vehicle that's uninsured, or the second vehicle that caused the accident does have insurance coverage. And there's a whole litany of issues that come up with uninsured drivers that I'm sure Josh loves to talk about. We joke all the time, we could spend an entire show on it because there's just so many issues to deal with. But Archie made a good point with those number of vehicles involved. It just exponentially increases the issues that are involved, the insurance carriers and whatnot.
That's right. And one of the important things, Art, is getting a lawyer involved, and we've mentioned it and been clear about it, but the insurance coverages that are applicable to you also can be expanded and opened up if you have a lawyer on your team. A good example is if, let's say, I'm in an accident and it's not my fault, it's a third party's fault, but the third party has no insurance. Well, a lot of people may think, well, I guess I have to use my own insurance to protect my property, and that's all I can do. That's not necessarily the case. There is a type of coverage that many of us have. You actually have to sign off on your insurance policy in Alabama saying that you're not going to use it for the year because it is presumed you're going to have it, called uninsured motorist coverage, that may protect you on that rainy day where somebody caused an accident and they don't have coverage. So there are a lot of different types of insurances that could be applicable in a case. Getting
a lawyer involved, getting the right lawyer on your team, that's why this show exists. Yep. That's why the attorneys is here, and that's also why you can give us a call right now at 1-844-LAW-TALK. You want to talk to an attorney, you can talk to someone live right now. It's free. It is confidential. We still have a lot to go through on the accidents, but we also have a viewer question Viewers are getting in contact with us. They want to be a part of the show. We're going to hear from one of those viewers when we come back. More good information still ahead on The Attorneys. Stick with us.
I'm attorney Bobby Bell with Hollis, Wright Law Firm. In today's world, social media is all around us. It is common for many people to post on social media regarding their life and activities on a daily basis. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and similar social media are great ways to stay connected to others and to share your experiences and thoughts. Some seemingly innocent social media posts, however, can have devastating effects if you're involved in litigation, especially in a personal injury claim, a contested divorce, or a child custody battle. Courts regularly allow adverse parties access to the other side's social media accounts, allowing relevant posts to be presented as evidence. These rules have allowed social media to become a hotbed of information in the litigation world. In fact, we are seeing more and more preservation orders issued by courts requiring you to collect and save any and all social media activity. Therefore, it's advisable that even before there's litigation, lawyers should advise their clients that social media content may be discoverable. Here are a few helpful tips. 1. Do not post anything about the case. This includes posts regarding conversations or meetings with your attorneys, remarks about your injuries, negative remarks about the opposing party. Do not post anything you would not want read in open court to either a judge or a jury. 2. Avoid new friend requests from people you do not know. Many law firms and insurance offices may attempt to have employees follow you on social media in an attempt to gain information. 3. Limit adding new photos, check-ins, photo tagging, etc. Seemingly innocent posts may be used against you. Regular check-ins at restaurants, parties, or other events with friends can cast doubt on any claims of loss of enjoyment of life, pain and suffering, or emotional distress, since you appear to be living life as usual. 4. Increase your privacy settings. Many social media sites frequently update and change their privacy settings. In the litigation context, it is possible you may have to preserve and present anything you posted. Therefore, we encourage you to be smart and careful when using social media. Please remember, your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis Wright want to help answer your questions on real issues you face. Remember, a competent lawyer will respond to every question you send in. That's our pledge and promise to you. Thanks for watching The Attorneys.
Car accidents, what to do after the accident. You're back with The Attorneys as we are diving into that topic tonight. A lot of great discussion. I want to remind you that we've got questions coming in. In fact, let's get back to the guys. And Craig, we want you to answer this question. This is a question that came in from Tyler about this whole topic.
I thought the other driver was going to take responsibility for the accident, but now his insurance company is saying they aren't going to pay for my injuries. I didn't get any pictures of his vehicle, but the accident was really bad. Is there a way I can get those pictures to help my case?
Well, Tyler, that's a fantastic question. And again, it goes back to the common theme of this segment is to get in touch with an attorney, because there are a wide variety of services that we can use to obtain those pictures. There's online services where we can get pictures from the wrecker services, the tow trucks that actually took the vehicles away. We can hire in-house and out-of-house investigators to actually go to those places and get those pictures. So it's a great question. Again, it's why it's important to get in contact with an attorney so that you know what you can and can't do and say, look, I didn't get the pictures. Is there a way that we can do it? And of course we can. There's a wide variety of ways that we can do it.
Hey, and good answer on that. Two quick questions. One is, do you have a duty to put your insurance carrier on notice at the time of your accident? Because I know people sometimes are scared. If it's not my fault, if I put them on notice, it's going to impact the value of my policy. And number two, what's the general statute of limitation for when a case has to be filed?
Good question. And every policy that I've seen, I'm sure it's the same with you, you do have a duty to put your insured on notice of the collision. let them know, hey, I was involved in a collision on this date, here's what happened. I know it can be scary and you have that thought, but every insurance policy has their own specific language, but every one that I've seen requires you to report that incident. And if you are injured in a collision, in Alabama, you generally have 2 years from the date of the injuries to file a lawsuit to receive compensation for those injuries.
One of the things I think is important for the viewing audience to understand is if it is determined that you were not at fault, okay, or if you're using your own uninsured motorist coverage, and your lawyer should walk you through this, it should not impact your premiums for your next renewal because it's a non-fault accident for you. Now, if you're at fault, of course, or someone in your family's at fault, and we've all had that circumstance. Some of us have younger kids driving and we have fender benders. It is going to impact our insurance. But a lawyer will walk you through that process.
And I think that's what you hit on. A lot of people at home are concerned about that. A personal story, my wife and I, in the car, sitting at the light, someone hits us from behind before we can get out to see, make sure everybody's okay. They're gone, and then you wonder, how's that going to impact me in my insurance?
Yeah. Right, and that's a scenario we run into all the time. Somebody gets hit and they leave the scene, right? In Alabama, that's considered a phantom vehicle. And so if you have that phantom vehicle, you have a driver that's left the scene, they're considered uninsured, right? If you can't get in contact with them, can't track down their insurance carrier, they're now an uninsured motorist. And it goes back to what Josh was saying, that's why that insurance coverage, that uninsured insurance coverage, is very important. I argue sometimes it's more important than having the liability insurance, which obviously is required by law. But the fact of the matter is although it is required by law, I wouldn't say most, but a lot of people on the road just don't have any insurance coverage. Yeah. And so if you have that extra layer of protection on your own policy, then I would advise getting it, because it is relatively inexpensive coverage. So I always advise clients, they ask me, how much should I have in coverage? And my answer is always the same. It's as much as you can afford, because on a rainy day, like you said, having that backup plan and that safety net of if I'm hit by someone and they flee the scene, at least I have some protection under my own policy.
That's right. And, here's the deal. Some of this is somewhat complicated. Mm-hmm. Get in touch with your insurance agent. They're going to answer these questions. And by the way, they have an incentive to sell uninsured motorist coverage too. So it's not like they're going to shy away from that. You can ask them, hey, what do I need? Sadly, 20% of drivers on Alabama's roadway, even though it is illegal to do this, and you will lose your license if you're involved in an accident and don't have insurance, do not have insurance. So, 20%, 1 in 5, still don't have insurance. And so it's very important that you talk with your insurance agent to make sure you got the right coverages.
The information on car accidents has been phenomenal. Craig, thank you. Shirley, appreciate that. Josh, of course, you're always a star, as you always are. And want to thank Tyler as well for calling in with that question and providing that question for us. And you as well. Thank you so much for joining us. And you can always get in contact with the attorneys at 1-844 Law Talk or 324-3600. Area code is 205. We got another great show lined up for you next week. Make sure you join us and stay in touch with us throughout the week on social media. Thanks for joining the attorneys. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.